Shout out to Crunchwrap for using my code on 𝗏𝗄'𝗄's website. 𝗏𝗄'𝗄 boosted my code to 30% off for the entire week to celebrate Witch Queen, and if you guys are interested, check the link down below. Thank you, and enjoy the video. With Season of the Lost lasting an excruciating 6 months, and the 30th anniversary only providing 2 new weapon sets midway through, it's been a while since we've sat down and reviewed a whole new weapon set for Destiny 2, but today, that changes. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're taking a look at the new Cabal-themed Season of the Risen weapon set, going over how to get every single weapon, what their god rolls are, and ranking them in order of best to worst, so I don't waste your time. If that sounds interesting and you enjoy the video today, a like and subscribe would go a long way for the channel, and come on now, this is the first weapon set review we've done in a while, you gotta start it off with a bang. So without further ado, let's jump into this. Now first things first, how do you actually farm these weapons out? Well, these weapons are gotten through the PsiOps Battlegrounds playlist that is found in the Helm. At the end of every battleground that you run, 2 chests are going to spawn. The first of which is free, and this will drop world loot items. The second one though is going to cost some of the new seasonal currency, psychogenic intel. This intel can be gathered by just completing activities, and you can also get more of it by wearing the new seasonal armor to benefit from the uniformed officer intrinsic armor perk. Now, upon opening the seasonal currency chest, you're going to receive this activity's loot, which is in the form of weapons and armor, as well as this new material known as Risen Umbral Energy. This can be used back at the Helm to focus farm these new seasonal weapons and armor via the tools of the Risen Engram, or you can focus each weapon specifically at the bottom of the page, although this is currently time gated. Now keep in mind as well that if you do get enough deep sight resonance drops of these weapons, which it can drop with deep sight resonance at the end of the battleground or when focusing the engrams, if you do complete enough of that on these weapons, you can unlock each weapon's individual pattern and craft one for yourself at the Enclave. But do keep in mind though that weapon crafting does not allow you to put any perk that you want on a weapon, but just allows you to specifically select what you want from the weapon's already existing random perk pool. You're also going to be able to enhance the perks that you put on these if you have the materials, so do keep in mind that if you do get a god roll to drop for you via RNG, it's still not going to be as good as if you crafted it yourself, so keep on the lookout for the deep sight resonance drops so that you can get the pattern. And also, if you're a bit confused by all the crafting stuff and you still need a little bit more info on crafting, check out my standalone guide, link in the description. Now, one more thing of note about these weapons, just like how the armor this season has an intrinsic trait, so do these new weapons in the form of the Land Tank Origin trait. This trait ramps up your damage resistance for a period of 4 seconds after getting a kill, and can stack with the more kills you get. I may recommend some perks going into the future of this video based off of this Origin trait, so keep that in mind when I talk about each weapon individually. With all that said, let's rank all 6 of these bad boys from best to worst, and go over each one's best perks. Starting off with our first weapon of the video, we have what is single-handedly just L+ ratioed every arc auto rifle in the game, and that is the Sweet Sorrow auto rifle. Sweet Sorrow is a 720 RPM arc auto rifle, currently rocking the highest zoom value out of all the 720s at 17. And it's also the only energy auto rifle in the game that can benefit from the new perk synergy that One For All has. Now One For All, as we know, is the perk that gives you a whopping 35% damage buff by just shooting 3 enemies once. But not only does this weapon roll with One For All, it comes with the new perk called Stats For All. And let me tell you something, this is basically the perk Outlaw if all you had to do was hit 3 targets, and it boosts your handling, stability, and range on top of all of that. I was truly blown away whenever I found out just how crazy the reload buff is on this perk, and it quickly became one of my favorite perks for in-game content. So the Stats For All and One For All synergy is basically one of the strongest weapon perk synergies in the game. But what about the other perks? Well, we have the triple tap Vorpal roll if you're looking for an arc version of the Arctic Haze, as well as the new perk Focused Fury, which states that hitting half of your magazine as headshots is going to grant a damage buff. I tested this myself and it only grants a 20% buff, which can be pretty annoying to proc if you're not doing it on one single beefy target. The buff lasts for about 10 seconds, but with One For All being an option on this gun, I just don't see the point in Focus Fury, at least in this case. Now moving on from the Sweet Sorrow, we have a weapon that has risen from the grave and found a new name in Destiny 2. Explosive Personality, aka Martyr's Retribution, but better. Before we jump into it, I know some of you guys might be wondering why this isn't the #1 pick for the video, and to that I say I love 𝗦𝗡𝗡𝗍 but I'm still a blinding nade simp, so yeah. Anyways, Explosive Personality is a solar 𝗦𝗡𝗡𝗍 that has so many perk combinations for so many different situations that there are a ton of god rolls that you can rock on this thing. Taking the land tank origin trait into account, you can rock a role that fully focuses on rushing in, getting close, and killing as many enemies as possible to benefit from that resistance buff also. We got plenty of fast reload perks in the first column like Threat Detector, Feeding Frenzy, and Stats for All, with the second column featuring Frenzy, Golden Tricorn, and One for All, although you could rock Unrelenting here and just fully spec into being an unkillable god if you'd like. We also have the role, which I'm probably going to rock, which is a bit of a more passive playstyle of just shooting once and swapping weapons to clean up remaining adds, and that role might look something like auto-loading holster and Frenzy, with Frenzy being a perk that I'll be able to take advantage of and get ready even before I pull the weapon out just by being in combat. Lastly, we have a role like Genesis in the new Turnabout perk, which is going to be some nasty synergy. Genesis automatically reloads your weapon when popping an energy shield, and Turnabout gives you an overshield when popping an enemy shield. So lots of great potential there as well. Now next up from the Explosive Personality, we have the new Void Bow, the Under Your Skin. This bow right here not only gets brownie points for being the new farmable Void Bow, but also because of the ridiculous synergy it has with a lot of the stuff going on this season. And if you haven't already picked up on it, there's a lot of synergy going around this video. Firstly, Anti-Barrier Bow is a thing this season, and what better legendary bow to use than one that rolls with the ever-elusive Archer's Tempo Explosive Head combo. Extra rate of fire after headshots, permanent 11 to 15% damage buff, absolutely nothing not to love about that. This weapon also rolls with the Adaptive Munitions perk in the final column, which is going to allow you to trade in a perk slot in exchange for making this weapon useful on opposite elemental shields and things like match game content. Although I wouldn't recommend this if playing with a team because you're already going to be synergizing your loadouts, or unless on a kinetic weapon or something. Under Your Skin can also roll with the successful warm-up perk in the final column to make your bow draw time quicker after a kill, but trading that in exchange for a damage perk when you already have Archer's Tempo in the first column just doesn't seem like a great idea. Anyways, aside from the Archer's Tempo Explosive Head roll we talked about earlier, this bow can also roll with a nutty combination of Unrelenting Dragonfly. Now why is this important? Because of the new artifact mod named 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏, this is going to allow void weapons to make enemies volatile when shooting them after picking up an elemental well. Explosions and heals for days with this god roll bow, and there's definitely some crazy builds to be made here. Now moving on from Under Your Skin, we have what might be the best kinetic pulse in the game, depending on your preference of archetype, and that is the Peace of Mind Rapid Fire Frame. This pulse rifle comes in with a pretty nice sight, a good magazine, and also some pretty great rolls for in-game PvE, although nothing super special like we've talked about with the other weapons thus far. This gun can roll with Overflow or Stats for All in the first column, with Focused Fury, Adrenaline Junkie, or Vorpal in the final column. Nothing necessarily crazy here from what I see at first glance, just a solid pulse rifle and nothing else really to say about it. If you're running a good and reliable pulse for the kinetic slot this season for unstops, this definitely isn't a bad pickup. I would probably roll with something like Stats for All and Vorpal, but Overflow Vorpal wouldn't be bad, and Focus Fury isn't a bad pick either, as it doesn't really have any crazy damage buffs to compete with. Up next from the Peace of Mind, we have what might become a staple of mine in the kinetic slot during DPS phases and raids if snipers ever get a buff, and that is the THOUGHTLESS. This adaptive frame sniper is very similar to Tranquility and Shepherd's Watch in a lot of ways, as it's a kinetic that rolls with firing line. Well, technically it's a stasis that rolls with firing line, but it differentiates itself by rolling rapid hit alongside firing line, making its overall DPS much better, and there's also those stasis synergies there with things like Font of Might if you are running a stasis subclass. Now, that reload speed with rapid hit of course is going to go a long way, and firing line's 20% damage buff when near teammates will put the damage per shot above the likes of Eye of Soul, for example, which has Vorpal as its damage perk. If you're in need of a damage perk that doesn't require teammates but is still going to give that 20% 90%, this is a case where 𝗏ocus Fury is really good. This is going to be a really easy to proc perk in this case, given that you're firing at a single target for DPS. Super awesome sniper here, but currently the meta doesn't really warrant snipers outside of Izanagi and aggressive frames for general gameplay, but keep an eye out. This might be a pretty decent pick in the future, and I would highly recommend getting a god roll of it. Lastly for the video, we finally make our way to the first ever stasis machine gun in Destiny 2, and that is the Recurrent Impact. I just want to go on record, by the way, and say that this weapon is last because I personally despise the weapon frame. I'm not saying that the gun is bad, I just personally don't like it, so I just want to make that distinction really quick because it is a pretty good gun. Anyways, looking at the perks, this weapon actually does have a lot of great things going for it. In the first column, we have not only field prep, but also stats for all as well as subsistence, with the final column featuring firing line, one for all, frenzy, 𝗏ocus Fury, which might as well be a waste here, as well as headstone for those crispy stasis builds. If you're a big stasis guy, this machine gun might be the must-have for your build as the final infinity stone for the heavy slot when rolling with headstone. But for general gameplay, any of the first column perks I named earlier are good to go. With one for all or frenzy in the second, it's going to make this weapon shred through enemies like a dream. But guys, that is going to do it for today's video. That is everything that I have to say about the new Cabal weapons from Season of the Risen, and with that said, what Cabal weapon from the season is your favorite? Obviously for me, Sweet Sorrow definitely takes the cake, but let me know yours in the comments down below. I'm fairly happy with this weapon set, to be honest, given how awful the last set was in Season of the Lost for Astral Alignment. All these weapons actually bring something super special to the table, maybe outside a peace of mind, but even then, it's still a super good weapon. So yeah, all in all, I'm very pleased with the seasonal weapon set, and I'd imagine a lot of you guys are too. So let me know what you all think down in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching up until this point, as you have no idea how much that helps the video perform, so I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Remember to subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all next time.